Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center, man. As you can see by the title, we're going to be taking another look at that 2025 recruiting class coming out of the state of Louisiana. And for this video, we have St. Aug's very own Warren Roberts Jr. He's a 6 foot, 1.5, 220-pound edge rusher, like I just stated previously, who played for St. Aug. He's a Tulane commit. 24/7 Sports has him ranked as a 3-star recruit with an 88 player rating. He had college offers from the likes of Alcorn State, Houston, Lafayette, ULL, ULM, North Texas, Troy, UCF, Southeastern Louisiana. His high school athletic background. So I'm not quite sure if he played multiple sports in terms of basketball, football, or if he even, played football and ran track. But for his high school athletic background, what I found on 24/7 Sports, it just kind of had, it was like a small scouting report from a 24/7 Sports scouter, but they didn't say specifically who the name is. Normally I know Gabe Brooks does it, but it said that hand on the ground high school edge defender who could potentially play off-ball linebacker or standing edge long term. So now we're gonna jump down into my evaluation. So I put, in terms of height, Warren Roberts Jr. can be considered undersized when scouting edge rushers. Teams look for a combination of size, speed, and athleticism. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he won't be successful with it. But, a lot of times when, teams are looking at, most of the time, most recruiters go off of prototypes. So, if you don't meet that prototypical size requirement in terms of height, sometimes you kind of can be overlooked. But that doesn't mean that if you don't meet that you're not going to be a great player. We know plenty of players who don't meet the prototypical size who dominated. Like if you look at Antonio Brown, look at him. Does he meet the prototypical size for an outside wide receiver? Absolutely not. But look at how effective he was. I mean, even look at what Aaron Donald done. So that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that a lot of times will lead to you being looked over. But they also consider a player's ability to disrupt the pocket and create pressure on the quarterback. So ultimately, that's what it comes down to. At the end of the day, you can meet the intangibles in terms of height, but if you can't disrupt a pocket, if you can't put pressure on the quarterback, if you can't, contribute to stopping the run, how productive are you really? So a lot of that kind of goes out the window when you're looking at it from that perspective. While height can provide advantages like seeing over the offensive line, especially on the next level, because offensive linemen get much taller. Agility, speed, and explosiveness are also crucial for an edge rusher to effectively rush the passer. Being short may even be an advantage in that it can make it easier to get under opponents and exert upward pressure on them. So, equivalent to that is what I would say with, like, when you look at Mike Tyson. You look at Mike Tyson, if you're familiar with boxing, who was like, maybe 5'10", 5'11", and he was going up against giants, guys who were 6'4", guys who were 6'5". And even when you hear him break down how he was so successful, he was just talking about how, he utilizes his leverage from already being a shorter fighter. So whenever he's throwing up uppercuts, whenever he's throwing those shots, he's able to generate much power because of the leverage that he has over them by him being much shorter. And you look at Javonte Davis, what he does at his height. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that's always a disadvantage. The first 2 plays on his highlights showcases his playmaking ability, putting himself in the right place at the right time. He also looks like a high-effort player that's trying to make a play on every snap. When he gets to the QB, he's coming with bad intentions. Once you hit a QB a few times, most are going to look to get rid of the ball a little faster, which can lead to turnovers. And that's what you would consider disrupting the pocket. Once you go back there, and even if the quarterback gets rid of it, and it's just a second before you can get to him, and you put a hit on him, it makes him second guess and say, oh man, I got to try to get rid of this ball a little bit quicker because I'm not trying to take these type of hits. And guess what? Now the quarterback starts second guessing himself. Now the quarterback starts hearing footsteps. Now the quarterback can't play at the level that he normally would be accustomed to playing because of that factor that you have on that edge. You know what I mean? So that's one of the biggest, that's a big contributor to that. A lot of times we always talk about sacks, which sacks are not bad, right? But at the end of the day, let's just say you sack a quarterback. It's 1st and 10, you sack a quarterback, you sack him, now it's 2nd and 17. And let's just say one play, they can be right back where they was at, everything they lost, or even have a first down. But when you hurry the quarterback, whether it's a strip sack or make him make a real decisive decision and throw the ball that leads to a pick, now you bring your offense on the field and give them opportunities to put points up on the board. So, that's always going to be added contributor when you're looking at defensive linemen. Let's go back to the, okay, yeah, cool. So he is pretty good at shedding blocks. Also has great ball pursuit, which means he's sideline to sideline, and you even seen that in the highlights, which you don't see that from a lot of guys that might have their hand in the ground, or guys that plays on a decent defensive line, and that leads to tackles downfield. I think he can work on his hands more. I think he relied on his snap anticipation, which is not necessarily bad, because that's something that an edge rusher has to be able to do, anticipate snaps to get that first step, or to try to get that burst, and using his speed to beat offensive linemen to the spot, which can be hard on the next level, where offensive linemen become much more athletic and they also become much more stronger. So if you're not really good at using your hands, you're probably going to struggle a little bit on the next level, just because it's going to be a different level of competition when it comes to when it comes to offensive linemen. Whereas, like I said, in high school, you could get away with just utilizing your speed much more. But when you get to the next level now, it's a lot of things in terms of technique that you got to kind of perfect in order to be effective consistently. I would say that. So now we're gonna get to the part to where I put on here 2 plays that stood out to me, which it was more than that, but I was like, I ain't gonna just go too deep. I don't want to make it too long. The first play that stood out to me was against, I believe it was Rummel. I might be wrong, but I think it was Rummel based off those colors. He was being held on that play initially to prevent him from getting the sack, but he fought through the hole. The QB rolled out the pocket and he chased him down to get the sack. On that play right there, to me, he showcases incredible effort, high effort, which I always talk about. I always talk about athleticism can only get you so far. Especially as you get older, your athleticism is going to deteriorate. But the effort that you give play in, play out, that's never going to deteriorate. So, like I always say, you have to work on those things what you can consider fundamental. But I just think that effort, is one of those things that can really take you very, very, very far. And to not give up on the play because he was being held. A lot of times, you got some players that'll throw their hands up, start crying and whining and give up on the play just because they was being held. Just because you're being held, that don't mean that you can't make a play. And if anything, that gives you a shot at a free play. So, you want to kind of capitalize on them. The second play that stood out to me was he anticipated a snap fairly well, but the QB got rid of the ball quickly to the outside receiver, who makes 2 guys miss and pursued him from the opposite side of the formation from the edge and made a tackle downfield, showcasing his speed, athleticism, and once again, his high effort. Now, something I would like to look at is I would like to see, his grip strength, even going back to the last video I did when we're talking about, edge rushers, especially once the next level, sometimes you're not going to always be able to get a clean look at the quarterback or the ball carrier. But sometimes if you can engage with offensive linemen and just create just a small amount of separation to reach your hand around and grab a hold to a shoulder pad or grab a hold to the jersey somewhere to try to snatch him down or pull him down or even halt the momentum for somebody else can rally and come make the tackle, that can be that's very contributor to have as a defensive lineman. And I also would like to kind of see his conditioning, like I would like to see if he's a 3-snap lineman. Is he one of those guys that's playing snap in and snap out, or is he one of those guys that might make 1 play, might make 2 plays, then you go to the sideline gasping for breath, sit out for 2 plays, and those 2 plays that you sit out can be 2 plays that can affect the game and not necessarily in a good way. So those are some things that obviously I would have to study film a little bit more deeper, which I do plan on doing in the future with a lot of these young men, to kind of just get a better understanding of who they are. Right now, we're just kind of going off of highlights, and obviously highlights are only going to show you the good, but they only tell you somewhat of a story. But like I said, one of the things that I look at when I'm looking at these highlights is, like I say, is effort, man. Like, how much effort are you giving play in and play out? Do you give up on plays? Do you take plays off? If you're not directly the reason for the play being made, do you still contribute? Like on this play right here, do you still run, even if you couldn't get to the sack, run downfield to make a tackle? You know what I mean? Those are the things that I'm looking at, and that right there kind of gives me a much better understanding of who a young man is, but obviously I would have to dive a little deeper to kind of get the full scope of who he is as a player. But, man, that's it for this video. If you did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, if you enjoyed this video, I got a lot of other videos like this. I'm pretty sure it's going to show one that's going to be popping up on the screen around this time. That's going to be another video that similar to this of me covering another player out of the 2025 class from Louisiana. So click on that if you like that. And once you click on that and watch that, man, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure you got your notification bell on. That way you'll be updated every time I upload, man, because I'm trying to get back to back and more consistent with these videos, man. But I'll see y'all next video.